himself, before the others. As a matter of fact, we know that Hashem tells us in the Torah they had a terrible, terrible situation where Hashem said, that's it, I'm finished, I'm blotting them out from my Torah. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, then take me out of the Torah. If you're going to destroy them and start a new nation, then take me out of your Torah. He's giving up now his life. He just went from being in Egypt where he's totally has nothing to worry about, and now he suddenly is becoming a fugitive. Now he's working for Pharaoh, for Yisro. Then there's a midrash that says he went out for many, many years until he finally had to come back. And this is what he does. Everything that he does is not for himself, it's for them. And that's what makes him so great. And that is the secret to leadership. And I want to tell you guys something pretty interesting. I know you didn't know this, but Putin, the Prime Minister of Russia? President of Russia. He is basically a friend of the Jew. It's not public information, but there are stories about the fact that when he was a child, he was a Shabbos guy. The same is true for Elvis Presley, for Louis Armstrong, the horn player. They were all and Donald Trump. This is all true, and they had good experiences with Jews. A Shabbos guy means that they're not Jewish, but they perform acts for Jewish people that they might need. Oh, I left the light on. Oh, my husband's an idiot. You got to help me out. That kind of thing. That's basically what they do. And they had good relationships with them. And as a result of that, because they cared, because they showed that extra something, they were rewarded. Look at how we are rewarded as a result of that. Just a little story to close it out. Something very interesting that I found out about it. There was a Jewish man that he lived in a very foreign town, somewhere in the Indies, many, many years ago. And they said to him, you know, you live here, you don't have any religion whatsoever, but for whatever the reason, you're married to a Jewish lady. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Oh, I could never marry out of the faith, he explains. And they said, why? He said, I'll tell you, it's very funny. About 60 years ago when I was a kid, I was traveling through a town, I was a salesman, I was a young kid, just trying to make a buck. And I fell asleep in this temple. It was a small town called Radin. I just remember somehow in the middle of the night, this old man walked by and he just put his jacket on top of me. And I just remember waking up and thinking, you know what? I'm going to never marry out of my faith just because of that. And of course that was the Chafetz Chaim. That was one of the holiest men that ever lived. He never spoke Lashon Hara. And you guys can think about it. Think about the idea that it's sometimes the small things. I also wanted to mention that this year was dedicated to Reisel Bas Pessel, who was my grandmother. We were talking about it today. My grandmother passed 22 years ago. It was very close with my grandmother. And the unique thing about her was she used to go when I was a kid, and she would take a bus from Tower 41 over here, all the way to 24th Street to Pine Tree Drive, just to serve me food. And here I am 30 years later, and I'm like, 25 years, I'm like, that's pretty cool that she did that for me. She was looking out for me. My friend Yoel Chaim Ben Yisrael Asher, very, very chashuv yid. He had a wonderful grandfather. And his grandfather, he told me, he specifically detailed how his grandfather would make the tuna sandwich, how he would cut the sandwich ever so perfectly, and he made it with such love. It's those small details that make the difference and can create a Moshe Rabbeinu and transform a Moshe Rabbeinu who was basically a prince of Egypt, who became a felon, who ended up becoming the prince of Israel, who saved us from God knows what, and who has taught us, who continues to teach us to this very day, that if you want to have true leadership, there's only going to happen one way: humility and caring for another person. Thank you so much, guys. All right, good luck.